Just 3 days ago, I flew 2 farms in a day. They're about 100 miles apart. One was 800 acres, and it was what I'd call, a density hub. It had a lot of great habitat, great farm, but weren't really getting the bucks they wanted to kill. 140s, 150s, but not the monsters. I went, did the drive, did the one in the afternoon. It was just an 80-acre parcel. It killed 3 180s off of it in the last 3 years, and it was just kind of similar to like Don's farm, just kind of an isolated 80 away from everything. I mean, look at what it's produced.
Jack, welcome to the Land Podcast. This might be a double feature. It might end up going to the Whitetail podcast too, but you're traveling through the area, and I said, well, let's sit down and do a podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Jake. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Excited for today. I think we got some really cool stuff to talk about, and gonna tie the whitetail side into the land side, and that's kind of the ultimate goal for a lot of people, right? Is to own the dream farm, like we were talking about earlier. So
everyone has a dream farm, and I think if we all said, there's 3 people in the room right now, and if we all said, what is your dream farm? And we had the ability to draw out and sketch out what we wanted exactly, and let's say it was a 640, I bet you all 3 farms would look differently. And so you've flown thousands and tens of thousands of acres. What do you think people should be sketching out for a dream farm for specifically big bucks, which there's a sliding spectrum with that, right? I deal with buyers as a real estate professional where you have the very far right side where like, I want the best potential hunting opportunity, period, point blank, don't care what it looks like. And then you have people that like want aesthetics. And then you have other people like, dude, I've been saving for 10 years. I just want to buy a farm that's within a region that makes sense to them. So I give you the crayons, draw me the dream farm for big bucks, habitat, anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, isolation is a huge advantage. So if we can get that, that really stands out as something that makes a huge difference over time. I know you had Lee on here, Lee Lakosky, and he said that their very best farm had road frontage on every side, right? So that just creates a huge advantage over time of, your bucks that you want to get that last year to get that last year. When we talk more about herd dynamics, and I think this is something that a lot of people probably don't think about, is do we want to buy a high density farm? Do we want to buy a low density farm? Is killing 1 or 2 big bucks a year our only goal, or do we want to have a lot of deer for a lot of people? And there's all sorts of different farms and places across the U.S. that meet those goals. I go to Western Kansas and I might find 20 deer on 1,000 acres, but one of them for sure is going to be a 160-inch plus class buck, and that's amazing. Might go to North Missouri and I might have to find 400 deer to find a 160 plus. And so they're just totally different herd dynamics in different parts of across the country. But isolation, good genetics really matter as well. I mean, we're seeing on Bill Winke's farm, right? I'm sure a lot of your listeners follow him. He's really struggling with just kind of bad genetics. And he recently made a video of how he's going to go about fixing that through shooting a lot of deer. And we'll tie that into a lot of farms. I think a big question people need to ask is it going to be a hands-on farm for them, or is it going to be more of a hands-off farm? Is it something you're going to live on and you can be on every day and do what's needed in terms of doe management?
I would say most people are probably hands-off, whether they would love to be hands-on, but it's just not viable for a lot of people.
100%. And so we want to look for the best hands-off farm, which looks quite a bit different than what might be your dream hands-on farm. And if you pick the wrong one, you're never, I see it so often, you're not going to meet your goals in terms of killing big bucks over the next 20 years. And that's the end goal for everybody, is the dream farm, right? So isolation, good genetics, the right type of farm for how much time you have to manage it. Those are 3 really big things. And then,
what does a hands-off farm look like to you?
I mean, we can go back to that central to western Kansas example where deer management really isn't a part of it. You don't really have any deer, and you're just it's mostly a feeder game and hunting those, and big deer come to the feeders, right? That's
Yeah.
it's not that simple, but um, you know, doe management, management isn't big into it. Another thing is, do we want a big farm that if we have 1,000 acres in southern Iowa, I think to properly manage a lot of those farms, we're gonna have to shoot a lot of does. It's gonna take a lot of time in the stand, and some people just don't have that. Or are we okay with an 80 here, an 80 there, the right setup over here that's only 30 or 40 acres? And personally, I think that's the best strategy to kill big bucks is to be more spread out.
Hmm.
Um,
What about relating more to the Midwest? And let's draw a band. Let's just throw in some states like northern Missouri, southern half of Illinois, and just kind of go east. So middle part of Illinois or the whole state. Parts of Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania. So more timbered areas with mixed ag. Are most of those more hands-on to do what needs to happen, like in terms of doe management? Like, what have you been able to learn from flying those types of farms?
Correct. Most of those, we'll call it majority cover places that aren't so open, aren't lower density, are going to be hands-on farms.
Hmm.
Unless, and we've talked about this on the Whitetail podcast, you can get away from those places several miles. You get in the outer edge of those density rings, I call them, where it's less populated, but in close proximity to those heavy cover, high population areas. Then those can become more hands-off farms.
Hmm.
And personally, that's where I would want to buy. I live in central Missouri, and so I don't want to have a farm far away in Kansas
Hmm.
or someplace like that. And so I want to get on the outer edge, away from those, what you might think is the more ideal place to be, but really where I found is the bucks we want to kill want to live.
Yeah. So, do you think? Because I feel like a lot of times, and I'm probably generalizing, but you get hired to fly some of these like the high density areas. Have you flown any of the farms that are like an outer ring or two out where you're like just you yourself, like, man, I flew this farm. It was 800 acres, crazy deer density, and then someone else hired me to fly another farm that was an 80 that looks right, more isolated. Like, oh, that's where all the big deer are. Have you seen that play out at all?
Just 3 days ago, I flew two farms in a day. They're about 100 miles apart. Um, and one was 800 acres, and it was what I'd call, a density hub. It had a lot of great habitat, great farm, um, but weren't really getting the bucks they wanted to kill. They were 140s, 150s, but not the monsters. I went, you know, did the drive, did the one in the afternoon. It was just an 80-acre parcel. They'd killed three 180s off of it in the last 3 years, and it was just kind of similar to like Don's farm,
Hmm.
just kind of an isolated 80 away from everything. And I mean, look at what it's produced.
That's crazy. That's that's impressive, and I feel like it's just if we all hit the Powerball, we're all going to go buy the biggest possible farm possible. At least that's me, because it'd be like, oh man, could you imagine if you owned X amount of acres, all contiguous, and you could manage it? But if you're not willing to do the management on the back end, to your point, like it seems like you'd be better to have a diversified portfolio rather than all your eggs in one basket, based off that logic.
Correct. Yeah, and I'd love to buy in the more outer density rings and buy a lot of the open ground around it just
Mhm.
as protection. Is that realistic? Easier to say on the podcast than it is on real life, but
Yeah.
or maybe you lease it, but um, I've just seen over and over again you don't want to be in that hub, that central ring. And
Mhm.
if you are in this if you are in the great habitat, um, that's more the hands-on farm and you can make those great, but it requires a lot more management of the habitat just because you have more of it, and it's
What
all balance.
what's kind of if you were I give you a check for $800,000.
Okay?
Jack, you are shopping. Okay, you're shopping. You can't buy in your backyard in or where you're at in Missouri. You can't buy anything there. So you got to go somewhere else and you have to peruse land listings. You got to go to landwatch.com and look at listings. What are you looking at in terms of outlines to make like Jack's thermal drone knowledge checklist before flying. Like, you can't fly into these farms either. So you have to take everything you've learned and then apply it, and you have a budget of $800,000.
Can't fly them.
So you have to use the data points you've picked up, the habitat types that you gravitate towards because you think there's bigger deer there. Like, what does that look like in the shopping process? And maybe it's easier to, like, which ones could you just rule out right away? That's a loaded question, by the way. I know that's hard. Like, there's a lot to it.
I would pick a very thick, lots of stem count, very thick farm that is isolated. If just to put it simply, if I were buying another state, I'd go to Kansas. Big Kansas fan. Not a Jayhawk guy, but go Tigers. But yeah, I'd look for isolation, thick cover, and protection from as many sides as I could. I'd say there's a great correlation between the grape farms I fly and them at least having 180 degrees of protection from neighboring hunters. If you can get 360, that's ideal. But
on a smaller farm, that's tough.
Yeah, it's very tough.
Yeah,
it's very tough.
Which, I mean, 800,000 is not necessarily a small budget by any means, but land's expensive, as we all know. And is he look hard enough? How much people always preach like diversity is super key, like different types of habitat on a particular property. Do you think there's merit in that, or is it just simply? And I don't want to oversimplify, but as much protection as you can get, and then even if it's thick but somewhat monotonous, or I'm trying to lay out a picture that makes sense. So picture a road is on 180 of it, and it's pretty dense cover. Like, is that enough? And then a place to have some sort of food, or what does that look like?
I don't think you have to have it all. Deer aren't too picky, I don't think. There's people would say you need to have switchgrass for them and this and every single type of food plot on your farm, and there's a little bit of truth to that, but deer can live off browse, right? So that they don't need all that, and they'd rather pick a safe place where they feel comfortable than having this and that. I don't think there's any particular makeup. I'd love to have at least a little bit of everything on my farm now.
Yeah.
Huge fan of alfalfa. I think it has a special drawing power more so than any food source to help to make a particular deer bed and maybe come over here as opposed to anything else.
Yeah. Well, this year specifically, the way where I'm at in Illinois, the way the weather just worked, that alfalfa was green all the way into December. Like, we had snow and it kind of insulated it. And when it melted off, like, the deer were still just piling into the alfalfa. And I was like, man, it was attractive all summer. It was attractive all October. It was attractive all November. It was still attractive in December. And you look at other food sources, like, I agree. I think alfalfa is, if you can manage it.
It's just hard to beat. Yeah. And it can be tough to get started, but it has magical power sometimes.
So your alfalfa is your favorite food source, would you say?
Well, I think if you look at year-round attraction, it's hard to beat a soybean.
Yeah.
But if we're just talking early season, I mean, alfalfa's, I would say it's king.
Yeah. If you want to know where property boundaries are for public or private, you want to develop a great plan for your farm, document perfect access to a blind, to a tree stand, carve out and measure food plots, connect your Moultrie trail cameras to an app that shows exactly where they're at, and you can look at the feed for that specific camera location, then Onyx is something you need to check out. It is the only mapping software I use when it comes to deer hunting. I've tried other pieces of software, different apps, and I always go back to Onyx because I think it is the most comprehensive, easy to use, and robust mapping software there is when it comes to hunting and land ownership. You want to send a pen to a friend, boom, send it to them right to text, opens it up. Maybe you have notes, maybe you have pictures on that pin, transfers all of it. You want to send a whole entire folder of a plan that you mocked up, you can do that on Onyx. So be sure to check out Onyx. They are a huge supporter of the Land Podcast. They allow us to travel around and talk to some folks that can give you really good insight and good information no matter where you're at in your process of buying land. Let's get back to the conversation. Yeah. What this is okay, when this will be closely aligned to when an episode goes live with Kip Adams. We talked about EHD and CWD a lot, and unfortunately, EHD is getting more prevalence, and I think sometimes. Do you think it gets over exaggerated on the level of impact of EHD when, like, I call you and I say, "Hey, I got hit by EHD 2 years ago. I think my numbers are way down." Do you see that transpire through, or is it just the deer they were hunting died and it was more catastrophic feeling than maybe what reality was?
Yeah, like what you just said. I think a lot of people look at their top 5 bucks they were watching, and if 2 or 3 of them died, they think that 40 to 60% of their deer herd died, and that's just not the truth. I've flown a lot of farms where, I mean, really good deer hunters and land managers would have just absolutely swore that all their deer were dead,
Hmm.
and they weren't. They still had really high densities, which makes you wonder how high were they before,
Yeah.
and maybe Mother Nature is just kind of correcting. I've never seen it to where EHD or CWD can really wipe out a herd or even close to it.
Yeah. What about were you in an area in Missouri where there was sharpshooting? Was there for CWD
I've flown close to some of those areas, and some of those areas produce the biggest bucks
because they're doing the herd reduction?
because they're doing the herd reduction.
That's interesting. So that wouldn't be a deal breaker for you if with your imaginary $800,000 check.
I mean, it would not. No,
Really?
absolutely not. And one of those areas is about an hour from where I grew up, and I mean, I know of multiple 180 class bucks that were killed very close to it.
Interesting.
The correlation between a herd reduction at a high level and growing trophy bucks it's unreal.
Yeah. What about how because you've been doing this for a while now, and I feel like I've told you this before. Like you're kind of like the pioneer of this space. You really are. When I think of thermal drone surveys, I think of you, and that's a pat on the back because it's really fascinating. I think people find it so interesting. But have you done follow ups where, let's say, the property they called you because they were frustrated or they just wanted to have a baseline of whether there's deer density, the quality of bucks, and then maybe they made some instrumental changes on their farm and you fly it maybe a year later. Have you noticed, can you take a 0 to a hero, I guess is what I'm getting at as far as a farmer? Have you seen anything where it's gone from like a 3 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10 and they make some changes and it goes from a 3 or 4 to a 6 or a 7?
Yeah, we'll start with a major habitat uh improvement. uh Not necessarily seeing the results from it on a killing big bucks side yet, but work for a landowner who bought basically a section 640 480 block of timber and just absolutely cut down 60% of the trees. I mean, he did TSI like you should on
Mhm.
every single acre. And um, I should say there's a 120 that's a part of that. So he owns of this 480 acre block of timber. There's a 120 that cut up into it, and it did not have the TSI done on it. And I think the first year we flew it, we found 157 deer, and then he cut the heck out of it that summer. We came back 2 years later, and he had 230. It's a great control because it's this block of timber,
Mhm.
totally surrounded by roads. It's not connecting, and so to see that huge increase because of the TSI, that's 20-25% a year.
Mhm.
Now, was that the right move? Because
Because
now
now
he has to increase his
harvest.
harvest goal. Yeah, and through talking with him and stuff, we've set a harvest goal for him, but um, he absolutely through that TSI sucked all the deer onto him, and it's gone up by 25% a year because that's so much more fertile ground, right?
Mhm.
So much more food. I mean, you 5 to 10x it when you do TSI at that level.
Yeah.
So, and then on the deer side, I've worked for a lot of people. I'm in my third year now, so I've flown
Mhm.
properties, you know, year over year over years, third year, and they've, some properties where they're killing 50 or 60 does a year, This might be 1,000 acres, but it's actually not reducing the herd at all. So it just makes you, it's helped me change what I recommend to landowners just because we need to kill more than we think.
Hmm.
And I know that sounds bad, but some of these farms really do struggle with overpopulation, and we want people to get to more of a healthy um, level for them to
Yeah,
grow trophy bucks.
yeah. And
And
there's a healthy herd balance too.
there is, yeah.
Yeah.
And when every time we add a food plot, every time we do TSI, every time we supplemental feed, we also have to think about the balance of taking deer off because of that. Because every time we add and make a farm better, we also have to up our herd management.
Hmm.
So there's a balance with that. And as we tie it back into buying land, is that are you going to be on that side of being able to do that, or do you need more of a hands off farm?
Yeah, that's I know a variety of different people that manage larger farms, and I don't think the average person realizes the amount of work it is to do what you're saying in terms of like all the different projects, and then also have the harvest goals that you need to reach, whether it's you know shooting junkier bucks for lack of better words, or having the right amount of doe harvest. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and especially on the deer harvest side, that's not something you can pay a contractor to go in to do.
Yeah,
You have to do it.
yeah,
And so it's a little different. It's not skid steer work or, in a tractor. We got to have time in the stand
yeah.
to accomplish that.
What about for someone that has maybe someone has 40 acres, 60 acres, sub 80, and they had you fly it, or they just know, like, hey, I know I'm holding the bulk of the does. I have the best habitat in this block. Do you think it's wise for them to go in and like, because it's like, man, I don't want to pressure my farm, but I know we have too many does. But if I have to carry all the brunt of having the best habitat and carry the brunt of killing all the does, am I ever going to be able to kill a buck like that? That's I'm sure across people's minds.
Yeah, in most scenarios, I think yes. I think you create more of a buck vacuum if you create a little bit of a different density dynamic on your farm versus the surrounding area. Every situation is going to be a little different. Um, are you a 40 that joins a 2,000 acre block of timber, or are you a 40 that's isolated in the middle of ag?
Hmm.
Those are two totally different scenarios. Um, I think you need to manage if you are the true isolation, similar to like Don's farm. He talks about how there's a balance between, if he killed all his does, then all the does would be gone, right?
Yeah.
So have to balance that based on the scenario. But if you are connecting to a larger tract of habitat, then I think creating that. I think harvesting does is still a great option for you,
Hmm.
even though you don't control that much acreage.
Yeah. Or because I feel like for some people, let's say you have a piece and you manage, you have food, and then the neighbors are seeing less deer, and then you're like, "Hey, we need to shoot some does." They're like, "What are you talking about? We're seeing less and less deer every year because you're sucking in more deer." I feel
Correct.
like that's got to happen a lot, where uh, it does become like almost a soul endeavor because you know to tell your neighbors like, "Hey, we got like it's an awkward conversation like, "Hey, man, I'm seeing like 20 does, at night," and they're like, "Well, we haven't seen a deer the last 2 nights," or like we only seen one doe family.
Yeah, and a lot of if your neighbor does a bunch of habitat work and doesn't kill any deer, you're actually the one who benefits from that,
Hmm.
almost more so than them.
Because the does are in there and the bucks are going to be on you.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's I've seen that over the years with just real estate where like someone buys a new farm, they do all the improvements, and then the neighbors are having the best success they've ever had. Where before they're like, oh man, we haven't killed a good buck in a couple years, and then the landowner puts in the food, leaves standing crops, and then it's like it's a weird balance. It's
It
like
is.
it's a hard thing. It's like, man, the more work I do, the better it is for my neighbors, and I'm not necessarily seeing higher quality of mature buck hunting on my piece, but I see a lot of deer. Like
Yep.
that happens to a lot of people.
It happens to a ton of people. A
Yeah.
lot of my clients. Yep.
So are you better off just doing nothing? I'm saying that kind of tongue in cheek there, but
I'll tell you, the best farm I hunt, where we kill the biggest deer, we do nothing,
uh-huh.
and it's all because it's the right piece of the neighborhood.
Hmm.
And particularly on smaller farms, you got to buy the right piece of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You just got to buy where those deer are going to be, and not to shout out a service of mine, but flying before you buy can help you figure that out, right?
Yeah. How impactful is that? So like I feel like depending on habitat type, the amount of food you have, like flying in February or March, is that a fair reflection for we can only hunt them October through January, for example? So like flying a farm, I don't know, January 1, for example. Is that a good correlation? I guess do you have an example where you flew a farm like in the spring and then flew it in November? Like how much does that pendulum shift where it's like, man, if I flew this in January, I wouldn't have been impressed, but now I flew it in November and this farm is better than I thought.
There's certainly quite a few farms that might be, rut farms that we
Mhm.
just if we flew it in January, you'd be like, "Oh, well, this sucks." But
Yeah.
so I would say that's really habitat farm dependent, how it plays in the area, and that's something that I can look at and recognize right away and tell you, let's not fly it in January. Who knows what we're
You're
going to
wasting our
see.
time. Yeah.
And it's always good to get eyes on something, but it's just understanding what farm, what time of year type thing.
Hmm.
If you've got 500 acres of great habitat, I think we can fly it pretty much any time of year,
Yeah.
maybe other than summer, and figure out if it's good or not.
Yeah.
See what kind of genetics are on it. How do your 3-year-olds look? Are they all basket rack 8-pointers? That's not very good.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes good sense. I mean, you're right. There's a lot of different data points you could pick up from. What about what's a habitat type? And I say habitat loosely, meaning you know, uh, a dense honeysuckle forest. Like, high canopy is whatever was there, maybe low grade timber, and then the understory or edge is honeysuckle that's 8 inches thick, like honeysuckle trees. What have you seen with that? Because you have both ends of the spectrum where some people say it's cover, like the deer will still, it's good cover and it's maybe arguably the best cover in the area, but there's, you know, zero forage or browse because it's just choked everything out. And then you have the inverse where people will say, like, I'm not uh, around this area, you can't buy a farm that doesn't have any sort of honeysuckle or autumn olive, like unless you go in and manage it. So
Yeah,
I'm getting very long winded of trying to get
particularly
to my point.
Illinois. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But so how much of a deterrent is that you, or do you see an impact of quality based off of lack of quality of browse, but it's thick?
I absolutely do. I mean, if the large scale area is really, really densely populated with bush honeysuckle, it makes it a lot harder on the deer. I mean, there's just so much less good quality browse everywhere for those deer that I think they're not going to get as big. I have not, you know, not to say that there's not some big deer. There's a lot of big deer in Illinois, right?
Hmm.
But a lot of the on the farms I've seen that have bush honeysuckle, they're maybe in a larger bush honeysuckle area like Illinois, they don't have as much as the broader surrounding areas.
So
I've never flown a farm where I showed up that day and I was like, "Holy cow, there's a lot of bush honeysuckle everywhere," and been impressed.
mm, that's interesting.
Sure, people have some exceptions,
Yeah.
but
As a observation, because I mean you've seen more acres than anyone else, as far as I'm aware. So like, Jack, we're relying heavily on your observations.
yeah, and if you follow that Mississippi River corridor along, from maybe in the middle of Iowa down to St. Louis, there's tons of it,
Hmm.
both sides. And yeah, I mean, I always getting more data points, right? But
Yeah. What's something you've learned this year that sticks out to you, like as far as this flying season? Anything new?
um, give that a good thought. One that comes to mind is uh just kind of this line of over the past week I've flown a lot of farms with we're gonna bring up warm season grasses, which is a touchy subject, but
That conversation we had, I probably had more phone calls and more text messages, and then this week someone brought it up. We were walking the CRP farm, and they're like, "Do they bet in this or not?" I was like, "I don't know." So go ahead.
and I'm actually a fan of warm season grasses, but for different reasons than 90% of people probably think about them. And there's this line I learned this year is it's basically once you get into the later part of the rut and on, they just don't use them.
Hmm.
But I do think they are very valuable early season and in the summer. I think deer love them then. So you get into the question of should I have it on my property or not? I don't think you need it, but um, I think it is a different type of bedding habitat
Hmm.
that can make your property more attractive to deer. I think a warm season grasses says I want to create a dead zone and I want to be able to access in and out through that because deer don't bed in it.
Hmm.
Um, but
So like
let's see what else. Yeah.
when you just think of a recent farm that has a mix of timber, terrain, and then warm season grasses. This time of year, would you say 90% of the deer are in timber versus 10% in warm seasons, or is it 99? Is
Yes,
it
it's
80?
it's about 99. I can give
Holy
you
cow!
a
Yeah,
recent example where I found over 300 deer and only 3 of them were in the 100 acres of warm season grasses that look pretty good
yeah,
and around it. And it's because this time of year, it's browse is what matters, and
yeah.
there's no food out there.
What about cedar thickets? Because that's where we're at. Like I know there's parts of Missouri, parts of Iowa. Where it's when you say a cedar thicket, it's like a cedar thicket. And around here, I've never seen. And Richard's on a lot of farms too, and we see like pockets of cedars, but never a thicket where it's almost a monoculture of red cedars. Do you see deer bed in monocultures of red cedars? Obviously, like just picture an old pasture that grew up and it's 90% cedars, and it's pretty tough to walk through.
I really don't, and we recently had the big snowstorm, and I actually flew that day in some of the when it was coming down, and almost all the deer were under a cedar tree then, out of the
Mhm.
snow. But then I flew the next day after the storm, and still really cold. There's still snow on the ground, but then almost none of the deer are under the cedars then
Hmm.
because the snow's not coming down. They're out more in where the good woody browse is in the woods. And so I think thermal cover is important, but I think that time that they actually use it is a lot less than we think.
Mm.
They're going to use it when it's snowing. They're going to use it when it's raining,
Yep.
some in between. But, that was back to back days with farms that had a lot of hardwoods and a lot of cedars. And it went from 90% of them being under cedars while precipitation was coming down to 80% of them being out in the hardwoods the next day.
Yeah.
So that's in a monoculture of cedars. No, I don't find deer in that.
Yeah.
They're in more scattered out. Because when a deer walks into that, I mean, you might walk into a 10-acre patch of them. It's just a barren wasteland of nothing.
Buckland Funding. If you don't know who they are and you're looking to buy a piece of ground, I encourage you to reach out to them. They're chartered in multiple states across the Midwest, and they understand recreational land. I've said it a million times here on the podcast. The most important piece of buying your first piece of ground is finding a partner, finding a bank that understands what you're trying to do, that has competitive rates and understands the world of recreational land, because not all banks are created equal, and Buckland Funding understands our crazy goals of scooping up a piece of ground to enjoy it with family, to hunt it, to use it as an investment. They understand that and work with that every single day. I encourage you to reach out to them. If you're in the process of buying your first or 20th farm, reach out to Buckland Funding at bucklandfunding.com. Back to the conversation. Yeah. I was on a farm last week, and it was not when people think of cedar thicket, it wasn't. It was like scattered cedars in a hardwood setting, and it was cold and windy that day. And we walked in there. It had to be at least 10 or 15 degrees warmer, which obviously there's value in that when it's major inclement of weather. But so if you had a cedar thicket, you would probably go in and try to thin that out if you were trying to create a prescription.
I thin out about 80%.
Yeah.
I think there's value to having them.
Hmm.
We certainly don't need to go extreme and get rid of all of them, but a giant monoculture of them is definitely not favorable, and you're not getting any food value out of that.
Hmm. What else is on your land buyers checklist that we haven't covered, or anything else that you think may be overlooked by someone that hasn't flown as many farms as you have? Or I guess let me back up. Like, that's one point, and I think the next point is like everyone obviously would love neighbors that don't hunt. Have you flown high pressure areas where they're like, oh yeah, everyone hunts high hunting density, do you still find big deer, or is it like correlated with what you see? Like, oh yeah, you can tell they're hard on them.
I would say, if I go fly a good farm that's in a not well-known area, it might be good 75% of the time. I go fly a good farm in a well-known area, it might be good a third of the time. Huge difference there, right?
Yeah,
And so I think there's definitely something to that. You get into those less well-known areas and there's just not as many hunters and there's just more opportunities for getting deer to older age classes, right?
yeah,
I think there's definitely something to that.
yeah.
Definitely something to that.
So if you're in a well-known, so yeah, that's the challenge because it's like everyone is trying to accomplish a similar goal, and it's like so. I wonder if there'll be the places that all come to mind. Like you could name a county in probably each state of like Buffalo County for Wisconsin, Pike County for Illinois. Like they've been kind of revered in the past, and then you're suggesting like go 2 hours.
I flew a farm in Buffalo County a couple weeks ago, and the landowner was thinking about buying it, and kind of told me the history of it. And I was like, oh, I wonder what we'll find. That seems like a lot of pressure. And we found 60 does and 2 bucks.
No kidding.
And I don't think he's going to buy that farm. Saved him a lot of money, but yeah, I mean, a lot those famous counties. I've never flown a good farm in a famous county.
That's
When I
crazy.
say good, I mean I really mean like
80
8 out of 10
percentile.
or
Yeah,
better,
yeah,
but like really what you'd hope for.
yeah.
But it's just too much. It's just hard to overcome.
Wow, that's crazy. I believe you, but it's crazy to really wrap your mind around that. It's like past reputation carries a premium still, and maybe it doesn't match up to the quality. Yeah, I don't know. So everyone needs to go look at a. It's like if everyone's like, "Oh, I want to go off the beaten path," eventually, it'll be like a full circle, maybe.
No, absolutely, but there's definitely something to that. And even look at states. I mean, my top 2 states, a lot of people probably wouldn't put in their top 3, which is very interesting.
Do we want to say the top two states, or do we want to make everyone be on a cliffhanger?
Oh, I won't give away any specific areas, but Kansas and Oklahoma are phenomenal.
Yeah,
We're talking for,
mature bucks,
well, not mature bucks, but 180 plus
high end.
class. Yeah, really high end. Um,
How hard are they? Nah, I don't want to. I was gonna ask how hard are they really to find. I don't want to hear. I don't want to know the answer. Um,
well, and that being said, there are micro pockets everywhere that are just as good. There's 10 out of 10 pockets in Illinois, 10 out of 10 pockets in Missouri, 10 out of 10 pockets in Kentucky,
mhm,
10 out of 10 pockets in Ohio, 10 out of 10 pockets in Kansas,
mhm.
Oklahoma.
When you say pocket, how big are we actually talking?
Some of them might be 10,000 acres. Some of them might be some of them might be 5,000 acres. Some of them might be 25.
Mhm.
But when I say pocket, that's about the size. I'm in that range.
Yeah, yeah. Here's I had some questions before. What do you think almost every landowner likely needs to fix on their piece? So whether they have a small farm or a big farm, like what do you see when you're? I mean, you can see everything from the sky. What's one thing that most people need to fix? Is it shooting does? Is it a habitat related item? Is it a timber quality or habitat issue?
For most of my clients, it is truly just herd management. Both bucks and does. I think culling bucks is arguably more important than shooting does. But if they just were to stop all of their habitat projects and focus on managing the herd, I think they would have better results in the long run. Now, a lot of the farms and people I work for are not, they're kind of the central density hub, the better farms in the area. And so you look more large scale. Um, that's going to be dependent on your scenario. But I think one that's overlooked by most people is managing your herd.
Hmm. It's probably the most time consuming
It is.
when you think about it.
And the sad reality of technology and the modern state of hunting is, people want to look at their trail cameras from their phone in their house and be warm, and nobody actually wants to go put time in the tree stand.
Yeah. They wanna
If
be
we're
as
just putting
efficient
a
as possible, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of us are trophy hunters, and that's not the best thing.
Yeah. So what's your suggestion to that? Take friends and family, figure out
Make hunting fun again.
yeah.
I've
So
had a lot of conversations with some of my good buddies that, we need to make hunting fun again. We
yeah,
need to bring more people into it.
yeah,
And so there's a lot of great acreage out there. We just got to bring people in to help it, and it's actually helping us accomplish our goal as trophy hunters of growing bigger bucks.
yeah. That's yeah. I think that's a great thing. Richard, what do you got any burning questions that come top of mind? S- I'll repeat that real quick. Best just in case people couldn't hear it. So Richard's question is what is primo habitat? And I know there's a sliding scale of that, whether or are you thinking so like
Yeah,
okay.
this time of year it's going to be well TSI timber.
Mhm.
You know, timber that has food for the deer to eat, because that's 80% of what they're eating right now. So if you don't have that, it's hard to have any deer.
Yeah.
Um, so by far that. If you cut down trees, the deer will come.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a good way to I feel like TSI is like it's Pandora's box because I feel like there's a lot of people it's something that you want to do right. And I feel that everyone has a different opinion of what quality TSI is. Like I've I've seen some farms that I feel that were done by someone very experienced, knew what they were doing, and then I've walked some other TSI farms where it's like either wasn't aggressive enough or they just high grade the timber and say it was TSI.
It's almost never aggressive enough. I
Yeah,
mean, 90% is not aggressive enough.
yeah,
We
uh,
want to cut down we want
all the
50% of the
junk.
canopy to gone.
Yeah, because what I see sometimes is like, oh, we're gonna have it logged. They're gonna take white oaks and walnuts, and that was my TSI, and then you just have a timber stock of junk, and that irks me. I don't know why it does, but it really
Oh, it does
does.
to me too.
Yeah,
Because if it's done well, it's just such an attractant. It's
yeah.
so valuable.
Yeah, you want oak regen, you want all the forbs, all the brows, it that's something I we need to do. This is a platform needs to do a better job of this is a really good example of TSI and this is not a so great example of TSI. So people have a baseline of what it is because clearly it's one of the most powerful tools to hold quality deer.
I think Jake jump back in the land, buying land, how to find the right farm, how to find the dream farm. Um, you know, while I think one thing that is a lot of people I work for, everybody gets so um, caught up in maybe a good deal that they don't understand how rare that this acreage is and how it can actually help them accomplish their deer dreams. And I'm not saying you should overpay, but I think on a lot of these properties, it's okay to maybe pay market price or a little more if it's really. I mean, because there's only so many of these dream places for you.
Hmm.
So if you can get in, I'm talking more smaller pieces, but if you have to maybe pay up a little bit for that dream 80 they kill giants on every year, it's probably worth it because those are really rare.
Hmm. That's a great point because everyone wants a deal, but then I often ask like, what is your you gotta rank your goals, right? Is getting a great deal the highest part of that, or is it simply like having the opportunity to hunt big deer?
Yeah,
And those usually don't go together.
and you can own 480s and have a chance at 180 plus class buck every year, or you can own 2,000 that's contiguous, and you might get one every 5 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's It's tough. Us as humans, we want everything for nothing, whether
Yeah.
it's effort related, money related. Like we want the maximum return with the least amount of input. And frankly, deer hunting does not fall in that category. Whether it's land related, habitat projects related, like you name it, doesn't always go that way. You
Hmm.
get lucky, but luck is not a good plan. Never a good plan.
Yep. No, 100%.
What else? What else you got for us, Jack? I feel like we covered a lot of really good information, and I feel that anyone that is shopping for a piece of ground, I feel like oh, I've learned some things, and I hopefully they have a better idea. They have permission from you flying a bunch of farms. Like if this is the one that is the farm, don't let it run away because there's only so many of them out there.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk a little bit more about the density rings. My really simple, I heard on the podcast, a podcast the other day, a business podcast. He's like, my investment strategy is I find a growing area, I draw a 30-mile ring around it, and then I buy land there and I wait 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes up.
Yeah.
Well, with deer properties, I'd find the really good 1,000-acre chunk. I'd draw a 2-mile ring around it, and I'd buy the best looking thing that's around it.
Yeah.
And that actually works. I've seen it through flying all these acres. Those are where the big deer hang out. And
Mm.
so if you can find those places, and you probably know them a little better if you live close to them
Yeah.
and get 2, 3, 4 miles away from it,
Yeah.
a lot of times that is just where the giants grow.
That's a hot tip.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's amazing. It's the most clear I see it over and over and over again with the density rings.
Mm-hmm.
All different types of habitat.
Yeah.
It holds true.
Man. What would be some reasons why someone would hire you? Like what typically, they call you up. Is it typically to understand the deer density, like just a general benchmark? What do most people call you for if you had to boil it down?
I would say most people aren't um, aren't having the success that they would like to have deep down if we're really thinking what's happening. And they've done the habitat work, they've made their farm better, or maybe they're just starting and they want to see how things change, but they've maybe come to understand that herd management is what they need to accomplish, and there's no better way to understand where we're at and where we need to go than doing a herd survey.
Mm-hmm.
That a lot of people just buy a farm. They need the information to start. They want to track it over time. Um, I would say those are the two main reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Some people want to fly before we buy, like we said.
How often
That's
is it where they're like, oh yeah, this is everything we thought versus
it's about half an hour.
is it? Okay. Yeah.
About half the time it's a total dud, and about half the time it's
Better than what they thought.
hmm
Pretty wise if someone's going to be making that large of a bet, because it is a bet at the end of the day.
It is, and I think maybe if you can, if you're constantly flipping through farms, right? Maybe you hit on a good whitetail farm 1 out of every 4
Mm-hmm.
because they are hard to find.
Yeah.
And there's always factors are changing, but I think through the knowledge we can gain from the drone, and just what I've learned, I feel like I can get that right at least double that.
Yeah.
Maybe half the time. We're never going to be 100%.
Yeah.
But
What do you say to people that think they're just? I feel like there's a lot of people that are infatuated with drones and what you're learning and what you're observing, and there's maybe a half of them that are like sick of the word drone and deer hunting in the same sentence. What do you say to those people, or what are your thoughts? Because I see the benefits, and I do understand they can get abused, um, but I feel like what you're doing is giving people the information that they're trying to get through trail cameras, and is not as effective.
it's so valuable for herd management and property
From a
management.
biology standpoint.
Yeah, and biology and just understanding what is going on. And you may say, well, the unknown is better. Well, true, and I mean not true. Let's get rid of cell cameras, get rid of all this stuff. I think hunting might be better if we did all that, but it's all here. Let's use it for the good reasons. Taking it away is not still going to be used for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And if you do a survey once or twice a year, the information you gain makes you a better land manager. It helps your deer herd. It's all positive.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think it's only good things.
Yeah. I feel like yeah, I mean, from a biology standpoint, I think it makes total sense. So you can move forward with confidence if you do need to shoot more does, or you need to shoot, you maybe need to add more food and shoot more does. I mean, whatever the case may be. I feel like it's kind of hard to make that decision without knowing it
It just
with full
takes out the
clarity.
guessing.
Yeah,
When we have good information, we can make good decisions, and
yeah,
we can get great information through this tool that is a thermal drone.
I like it. If people want to have you fly their farm, do you still have some time this winter? This probably go live in the next week or two.
I
Are you
have a
pretty?
little bit, yeah. Try to fit you in. MidwestDeerSurveys.com is my website. Midwest Deer Surveys on all social media platforms. Go to my website. It's probably the best way to reach out to me. All my information will be there.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. I know you have other projects here lined up, so thanks for carving out the time. Always a pleasure to hear what you're learning. I'm fascinated with what you have going on.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it. Happy to share.